Ramaphosa needs to move on the NPA. A thorough cleanup of the NPA is long overdue and should be high on the list of President Cyril Ramaphosa's priorities. There is reason to believe that there exists sufficient impropriety in the NPA to warrant the appointment of a judicial commission of inquiry with powers of compulsion in terms of Section 3 of the Commissions Act, and we accordingly urge that the National Director recommends to the President that a judicial commission with the powers we suggest. This was one of the recommendations made by the Justice Zakikub Committee established by former NDPP Nkosazana in 2014 to investigate leaks to the media and other parties and unethical and unprofessional conduct by the staff of the NPA. Seen by many as the prime architects of discord and disharmony in the NPA, Namkobojiwa and Lawrence Murby opted not to participate with the Yakub Committee. The recommendation that a judicial commission with powers of a subpoena was designed to get Jiwa and Murby to testify. Jiwa and Murby were struck off the roll of advocates by the High Court in 2016 in an application brought by the General Counsel of the Bar. But no such commission of inquiry was instituted, and instead Nkosazana was maneuvered out of office with an unlawful golden handshake of R17.3 million in 2015. In his various public statements and court pleadings, Nkosazana had made it clear that Jiwa had mounted a campaign and conspired to undermine his authority from the time that he assumed office as NDPP in 2013. She had her eye on the top prosecutor's job, having served as acting NDPP for approximately 18 months from the time that Menzi Simlane's appointment was declared irrational and unconstitutional by the courts. Simlane was the first NDPP appointed by Zuma. Jiwa's small Nyana skeletons, however, meant that even Jacob Zuma could not appoint her as NDPP. Her appointment would almost certainly have been set aside by the courts. Indeed, Jiwa and Murby were struck off the roll of advocates by the High Court in 2016 in an application brought by the General Counsel of the Bar, GCB, after repeated judicial criticism of their conduct in matters before the courts. They are appealing this decision to the Supreme Court of Appeal, SCA, and have the luxury of being on special leave during this time rather than being suspended. In December last year, amid a flurry of court judgments relating to the NPA and state capture matters, was a High Court ruling that the dropping of fraud and perjury charges against Jiwa was erroneous. The court ruled that the president should institute disciplinary inquiries into the fitness of Jiwa and Murby to hold office in the NPA. This order was suspended pending the decision of the SCA and the GCB striking off of the matter. However, the court went further and ordered that Jiwa and Murby be prohibited from performing any functions at the NPA or accessing the NPA premises while on special leave. The court was clearly at pains to prevent any further poisoning of the situation at the NPA by the duo. On being appointed as NDPP in June 2015, one of Sean Abraham's first orders of business was to withdraw the charges of perjury and fraud that were hanging over Namkobojiwa. Abrahams may have gotten the job that Jiwa coveted, but she was not about to let her power and influence diminish. Was Abrahams in the debt to Jiwa for getting the job? He had leapfrogged 4 levels, including several more senior officials to land the prize. A stroke of luck, a recognition of his precocious genius, or a sheep being herded into a pen? We now all know the answer to that. No wonder Sean the Sheep has danced to the tune dictated by Zuma, repeatedly aiding in delays that have prevented him from having his day in court. He stoutly defended Mokodimksha's irrational decision to drop the charges, until he, and Zuma, ran out of legal options before the SCA in September last year. Once the SCA ruled that Mksha's decision should be set aside, instead of immediately reinstating the charges, Abrahams acquiesced in letting Zuma make further legal representation on whether the charges should be revived. He was under no legal obligation to do so. The Constitution only says that he may do so. Zuma had already had one bite of that cherry when he made representations to Mksha based on the controversial spy tapes. Abrahams then appointed a team of prosecutors led by KwaZulu-Natal Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, Moiponoko, to assess the representations and advise Abrahams. The team included the Eastern Cape DPP, Lungji Malitsi, Bloemfontein Regional Head, Alanisha Coetzee and senior DPPs Raymond Mathingwa and Billy Downer. Downer led the prosecution of Shabishake and was vehemently opposed to MPA's flawed decision in 2009. This now constitutes the core of the team that will lead the prosecution of Jacob Zuma on 16 counts of fraud, corruption and racketeering in the Durban High Court. Can we have confidence in this team to execute the responsibility to prosecute the former president without fear, favor or prejudice as the Constitution demands? That Noko leads the team is a given, as the matter will be heard in KZN, where she is the top prosecutor. Noko's appointment as KZN DPP by Jacob Zuma, while Jiba was acting NDPP, was not without its own hullabaloo. It was reported at the time that she was under investigation for maladministration, favoritism and abuse of office. Zuma created an art of appointing flawed characters to the senior public office. Noko almost immediately withdrew charges against one of the first ladies, Tobeka Madiba Zuma, in relation to intimidating her domestic worker. That was followed by withdrawing corruption charges against KZN's Peggy Kanaini and Mike Mabayakilu in the Amigos case involving Gaston Savoy and procurement irregularities at the KZN Department of Health. Kanaini was NPA for health at the time. A thorough cleanup of the NPA is long overdue, and should be high on the list of President Ramaphosa's priorities. She colluded with Jiba to reinstate charges against KZN Hawks head, Johan Buisen, that had previously been struck down by the High Court. For good measure, she also presided over the dropping of corruption charges against businessman Thoshan Pandey for attempting to bribe Buisen. None of this provides any reassurance that she will act independently and with integrity in prosecuting the Zuma case. The grubby paws of Jiba, Abrahams and Noko hold sway for now. A judgment is awaited from the Constitutional Court on the Golden Handshake page and whether Abraham's appointment is valid. Should the court confirm the High Court judgment that the Golden Handshake was unlawful and that Abraham's appointment as NDPP is set aside, President Ramaphosa will be able to select a successor who will hopefully begin the mammoth task of restoring the credibility to the NPA. In delivering the State of the Nation address in February this year, President Ramaphosa said, "We will urgently attend to the leadership issues at the National Prosecuting Authority to ensure that this critical institution is stabilized and able to perform its mandate unhindered." What better way to start than with an effective and impartial prosecution of a former president? But that will not be enough. We have seen attempts by the NPA following the ANC's national conference at Nasrec in December to portray itself as being serious about tackling corruption. This is nothing more than a knee-jerk reaction to the changing political climate and an attempt by Abrahams to save his job. There have been no actual prosecutions, let alone convictions, following the Public Protector's State of Capture report in November 2016. Nor have there been any prosecutions following the Farlam report on the Marikana massacre in 2015. Such lethargy in pursuing high-profile cases can no longer be tolerated. A thorough cleanup of the NPA is long overdue and should be high on the list of President Ramaphosa's priorities. Let it go, make my body go, make our bodies high.